So the Yucoin is our currency of well-being.
Yeah.
The mission of the Yucoin is how can we reward people and incentivize them to do these healthy habits? What you then have is this quest screen. So quests is when we take it a level deeper. It's when we say, it's not just about having the phone in your pocket, it's about taking that phone out and doing an active challenge.
Today is an episode where we're going to be taking another look at an insurance product which is making a big difference in the world, especially around sort of business insurance. I'm going to be speaking to Josh today, who is one of the co-founders there, and we're going to be talking mainly around the spheres of product and design. Josh is himself, as you're going to hear, a big gamer, so we're going to hear quite a lot about how those experiences are being built into the product, and then also about the sort of the nature of partnerships that go along with a product like this. Building in a larger sort of ecosystem, as he quite nicely phrased it, for the way that insurance products are being built into people's lives, especially ones which are premedicated around mindfulness and health and all those other great things. So this episode is going to look specifically at the bottom navigation of their app. First up is going to cover the specifics around their Yucoin offering. And then after that, we're going to go into some of the more gamified offerings, which are, going through these different tasks and also looking into the specifics of how their partnerships work. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Can you tell me a little bit about you personally and how you ended up getting involved with YuLife?
So yeah, my name is Josh Hart. I am the co-founder, Chief Technology and Product Officer at YuLife. In a past life, I was a co-founder of the largest mobile agency in the UK called Chelsea Apps Factory. And before that, I was doing a bit of consulting, and before that I was at school. So it was it's been a wild decade for me. From 20, I'm now 30, and I've been very fortunate to work with some of the largest companies in the world: Google, Standard Life, even John Lewis partnership. And advising these companies on how to take advantage of business models, harnessing the power of mobile in today's generation. But eventually you kind of get bored of consulting and advising that kind of traditional 65-year-old white male. And you think, you feel like I felt like an arts and crafts teacher by the end of it. So you end up in this situation where, you really want to make meaningful innovation and change in the world that is exciting and joyful, and, digital experiences that really feel fulfilling for individuals. And you realize that that's never really going to happen within these larger corporates on a consultancy fashion. So you conclude that the only way to make any change is to build your own dream. And I found myself in a cafe in Golders Green in London with two chaps that were introduced to me by a mutual friend who had this kind of crazy idea to build a new type of insurance company. And I'd been hanging out for about 3 months, having kind of sold out my share of Chelsea Apps Factory, and concluded that I wanted to really just, play some games and chill out. And then I found myself with these two other guys, and they were talking about this kind of big idea. I thought, you know what? I could take the stuff that I'm good at and the stuff that I want to do around product and technology and building desirable experiences. And I really liked the Sam and Sammy who I'd met at the time, and they were just starting out. I really liked just their energy, just kind, nice people. I'll never forget what Sammy, who's my co-founder and the CEO of the business, said to me, which is he just really wanted to build a good business that had a good energy in the world. And I just, having spent years selling consultancy and advisory services, I thought, wow, that would be nice, to regain one's soul. And thank God I haven't looked back. It's been a wonderful, crazy, must be coming up on our fourth year now, trajectory of growth, and it's been unbelievable.
So you took your Pritt sticks and your glitter and left behind your bundling career in arts and crafts and moved into the world of insurance from this product's perspective. Did you know at the beginning what sort of insurance products you were looking specifically to get into?
That's a good question. We always believed that life insurance was one of those fundamentals of insurances that society needs and individuals need, right? So society needs it because if people die, the dependents need to be looked after. And in Australia, that's done on a kind of everyone level, kind of like the way we've instituted pensions in the UK. In Australia, everybody has life insurance as part of the Australian super fund. Society needs it, there's no question, because these dependents are left with nothing when the main breadwinner dies, and often the government will have to pick up the pieces, and friends and family, if they have friends and family who can afford to. So there is a societal need, but also on an individual need, we have a responsibility to those that are dependent on us to take care of them if things don't go the way we imagine. And we need a parachute so that they're well taken care of. And life insurance, unlike a lot of insurances, is one of those fundamental needs that everyone must have if they have people who are dependent on them.
There are a lot of insurance companies out there who are in this disruptive sort of mood and environment, and they're going down a number of different routes. So for example, they might broker between insurers and between the individuals. They might provide a presentation layer on top, or they might offer their own insurance products. Was there any specific sort of process that you guys went down in terms of deciding what that was going to be for you, and what did you settle on in the end?
So at YuLife, we had a very big vision that we define everything from kind of where do we want to go, what are we trying to achieve in the world, and we set out a vision around that table and goals as green that was very clear to help people live their best lives mentally, physically, and financially. So the question about what insurance model to use really becomes, what is the best possible solution to facilitate that ultimate goal of helping people live that better life? Yeah. And we landed on MGA, as an MGA allows us, without as much compliance restriction, regulatory needs, to set up in a particular region, deploy technology, and scale very fast, whilst working with some credible insurance underlying partners who can give us a solid grounding in financial stability, right? So that, if God forbid someone does pass away, there's no question about the payment, making sure that there's sufficient capital reserves, making sure that there's credible underwriters. All of that decision came from that kind of, are we better to invest our money and time creating something that already exists, or invest our time, love, and energy into building something that can meaningfully transform this industry, where we believe that there is so much opportunity for transformation from the entire retailization and customer experience of insurance, as well as the truth is, as you can innovate on the financial products, even as an MGA model. You just have to do it in collaboration with a partner. And we were very fortunate that AIG and RGA were those partners, and they've really been very good to us, and they've worked very collaboratively with us.
And how does that sort of manifest, that sort of improvement of these specific financial products in partnership with these organizations? What sort of improvements do you envisage, and have you started to maybe implement that you think are making differences in the world?
So I split some of my kind of innovation time into two different buckets, right? We have how do we enhance the customer experience, the brand and the proposition, and also how do we look at the underlying financial products and determine what is credible? Because there's a lot of financial products out there that people are trading where I would say that they're not as credible in terms of the rationale for purchasing them as I would like to think that all financial products should be. Mm-hmm. So a good example of this would be, I look at something like term life insurance. So I've seen that you've had other life insurances come on the show. A lot of them are selling level term life insurance premiums. Now, a question I ask myself is, what is the scenario in which someone would normally buy a level term life insurance premium? So for those that don't know what this means, a level term life insurance premium is where I pay the same amount of money, call it £20 a month, for let's say £200,000 worth of cover over a period of 20 years. So every month for 20 years, I'm paying £20 a month. And if at any point during those 20 years, be it on year 19 or year 1, I get paid £200,000, right? People's lives aren't static. And that often implies that people are living a static life where the needs and requirements of every individual is the same for those 20 years. The truth of any period of time, people have lifespans, right? So we have as individuals economic activity that might be for 40, 50, 60 years, right? So if I'm 35, 40 years old, I can, let's say 40, and I intend to work realistically till maybe when I'm 70, so, after they move the age of retirement, I effectively have 30 years of economic activity ahead of me. Now, 20 years from now, or on that 19th year of the 20-year policy I take out, my economic activity has 11 years left. let's assume that I'm doing the other traditional things that I should be doing, such as having a pension, potentially saving some money, making some very low level of investments. Like, even if you don't make any investments, you just have a credible pension. You have a plan for after you reach 70. So it seems very strange to me that you would need the same level of insurance when you are, let's say, 50 and when you are 69. Whereas the reality is, so it felt more like a lottery ticket. And when you look at where does level term life insurance, the most commonly sold life insurance product in the UK, come from, you see that actually it was designed originally for interest-only mortgages, whereby if you were to pass away, you wanted the house not to be lost, which makes a lot of sense, right? You say you've got an interest-only mortgage of a house that's worth 200,000, like you say £200,000 with a house that's maybe £500,000. Okay, so you've got a £200,000 interest-only mortgage because you have an interest-only mortgage, not a repayment mortgage. It makes very little sense not to have something that mitigates that lump sum at the point of death. But we don't sell, as a country, as much as we used to, interest-only mortgages. And yet why, more than ever, are these level term policies being sold? Mm. And there are, I will leave it for everyone to wonder why that is the case, but the simple truth is I don't believe that they are fit for the human that exists, the human needs of economic activity and mitigation of risk. One wants to mitigate the risk of lost economic activity. Designing financial products to do that is much easier if you take into account people's actual lifespan and how they behave. So when we design products with our partners, we think we design it around customers, not around selling it. It's far more about what does a customer need.
There's we've had an insurance company called Dead Happy come on the show a few months back. I was interested to hear their take on this, which is that they will price their sort of yearly repayments on this insurance policy based on where that person is in their life and how not only how much they can afford to do at the time, but what is the likely risk of them sort of existing at that time in their lives. And I think that's in some way quite similar to what you're touching on there. And there is a very specific design language to your products. There is a very specific sort of a zoo creature, we'll call him, and he may or may not be in the room with you. But we do have a specific design language that's been tailored to a specific audience. Could you tell us a little bit about, where does the design for this product come from, and how do you think about that in the first place?
In terms of design, if you're referring to our how we gamify everything, I think underpinning that whole idea sits in behind it all is this desire to create joy. When I was 14 years old, I would play every home I'd get home from school. I'd go upstairs to my bedroom. I'd have this really giant tower with like 12 fans running some weird components in it, but it was amazing. And I would turn on my computer and start playing a computer game called World of Warcraft. And in this computer game, I would log in to this kind of virtual environment where I would meet my friends virtually. And we would, team up and battle these giants that existed in this virtual world. And what struck me when I turned about 20 was that the experiences that you have as a grown-up using technology are nowhere near as joyful as the experience I had when I was 14. And yet 6 years have passed. So why is it that some things are great, like some things I can't wait to get home and do and use my computer for, and yet other things are painful, like palatably painful, and you just have no desire to do them. Tax returns, good example. Timesheets, another good example. Your life insurance policy, another good example, right? So one asks themselves I found myself asking myself, well, what is the difference? Because all I'm doing is pressing a series of keys on my computer and I feel great in one scenario. And in another scenario, I'm pressing a series of keys on my computer and I feel like I want to jump off the roof. So why is that? And, people use the word gamification very they use it a lot now. For me, when I talk about gamification, I'm talking about desire and the manifestation of desire through technology. And at YuLife, when you talk about what design philosophy do we use, I would say our focus is our focus around everything we're doing is about how do we manifest desire in any experience we give to a customer.
Do you have any sort of workflows that you'll follow in terms of maybe from a product perspective, making sure that you're constantly shipping new features, all that sort of thing?
So there's a couple of, from a technical, so I'm the product and technical chap. So two sides, two perspectives I can share. One is our tech stack is React Native, React, JS, Node. And effectively, it's a very, very lean framework, which allows us to iterate quickly and build very quickly across platform. On the other hand, we have a design philosophy that is very iterative. So initially starts with a concept, an idea, a creative solution that then we can test with end users. And we can do that digitally through a number of different platforms. And we can qualify comprehension, understanding, excitement levels. And we're doing that on a constant, every day. You'll have tests running daily where you're testing things with end users for both usability, comprehension, and emotional response. And we're doing that all the time. So traditional agile practices are being fed into the project. So one has a product backlog, they're iterating, lead building. Every 2 weeks there's a sprint. Continuous delivery is occurring so that you're testing with it. You've got tests running all the time. From both a technical perspective and a product perspective, we're trying to be as live as possible. And using the benefit, we have 2 product teams running constantly with product owners, engineers, quality assurance engineers, data scientists in each team to ensure that we're listening to the customers' responses, etc. So it's fully fledged product teams. Additional.
That would make it seem then that if there is a sort of like a data science sort of component to your product teams, that this is often listening that's going on in app. So you're sort of like, I guess, monitoring behavior rather than maybe doing more sort of in-person qualitative testing, that sort of thing. Is that
so
fair?
We do both, but we are obviously trying to help people live that better, healthier life. And part of doing that is listening to how they're using the technology that's available to them regarding the health apps and our app itself, which we'll obviously come on to and I'll explain it there. But one of the obvious win-wins that exists within the life insurance industry is if I can help people live healthier lives, ideally happier as well, we know they're going to live longer, right? So there's a no-brainer in how can one facilitate a healthier lifestyle from one individual so that they don't die and therefore don't claim. And that's a win-win as I see it. Naturally,
yeah, of course. So I think the first thing we're going to take a look at today will be sort of more based around so we're going to essentially go through the bottom navigation of the app. We've got a rewards section, a coin section, quest section, all that sort of stuff going on at the bottom there. But this is a really substantial part of the offering here, is that you have like this loyalty program, sort of a series of loyalty programs built into the product with a sort of a currency of sorts attached to each of those different programs. So we're seeing constantly there that you can interact with the product in a meaningful way and generate some sort of financial reward. There is a load of different brands here, mainly, as you've sort of alluded to, focusing on the health side of things. I think there's a lot going on here from a not only a physical health but also a mental health perspective. We noted there the presence of things like healthy foods, but also things like mind and so on. That the sort of meditation and calming app. But this is essentially the partnerships that get involved in the product interact with the product in a meaningful way, potentially because of the existence of this sort of inner currency, if you will. Like
So the Yucoin is our currency of well-being.
Yeah.
The mission of the Yucoin is how can we reward people and incentivize them to do these healthy habits? So the first screen you see is kind of our today screen, the present day, right? It's how many Yucoin have I earned today? And the way we calculate that is we are calculating the number of steps you've taken. Let's say 10,000 steps equating to 5 miles, you'll be rewarded with an amount of coin. Let's say you've done 2 minutes of mindfulness, 10 minutes of mindfulness, you'll be rewarded with an amount of coin. And these coins can then be exchanged for those rewards that you showed a moment ago, including things like Avios Air Miles, Amazon vouchers, and Tesco's vouchers, if that does if that's what you'd like, Nike vouchers, just big high street brands. So really, it's about incentivizing those behaviors. And every day you can earn these coins just by having the phone in your pocket. You don't even need to open it. You can open it once a month, and it will sync all of these activity history around mindfulness that you've done in any of the mindfulness apps available in the Apple App Store or Play Store, and you'll be able to get those rewards. What you then have is this quest screen. So quests is when we take it a level deeper. It's when we say, it's not just about having the phone in your pocket, it's about taking that phone out and doing an active challenge. Now, an active challenge, slightly different to that you would have experienced just on the Today screen, is something that you've actively gone and said, I'm going to do a brisk walk, I'm going to do a cycling challenge, I'm going to do a mindfulness challenge. And those challenges, above and beyond what you've already received in your kind of daily steps you might be doing, will give you additional coins that will reward you. And even further than that, if you were to then do 7 of those challenges, you'll unlock a chest. And even if you were to do 5 of those challenges every day in a row, you'll get a streak and then an additional benefit. So there are lots of compounding ways to earn coin. The Yucoin is very core to everything that you do and everything that exists in the universe that we've created.
Mm-hmm. And it's it not only encourages good behaviors for you from a use perspective. I would imagine this drives usage in a way that most insurance products could only dream of. But the other side of this is that if you're encouraging healthy and active lifestyles, then you're far less likely to, rather cynically, I might proclaim, maybe claim on an insurance policy. There are certain sort of benefits that might tangibly come about from both interaction with the product and interaction with the service. So that's and that seems like a really core part of the offering. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, even the insurers you mentioned earlier, a lot of them will provide a service where you get a contract, you put it in a drawer and you forget about it and you're paying every month for that service. At YuLife, we believe that insurers have the opportunity to be partners with the individuals that take out the policies to mitigate that risk and therefore go on an adventure. Everyone is going on their daily lives and their daily adventures. I see an opportunity where an insurer can be a partner with an individual and go on a meaningful adventure with them every day of their life to help them be less risky and help them look after themselves more effectively. And cynics may look at it and say, well, obviously he doesn't want to pay out. Well, I don't want you to die. So sorry, that's the way I look at it. I think, gosh, I'm pretty sure you'd rather not claim than claim. How do I help you not claim? Because the reason we take out insurance is to mitigate risk. It doesn't completely absolve it, but it mitigates it from a financial perspective. Now let's mitigate it from a health perspective. And you know what? Don't pay anything in addition for that. I'm going to give that to you as part of our policy. And I do that for companies. So a company will launch YuLife within their organization. They'll give it to all of their staff. Staff will then be able to top up. If they leave the company, they can keep the cover. There are lots of opportunities for us to look after big communities of people and individuals alike. And that's what our group products do. The group life insurance, the group income protection, the group critical illness, all these products that we've been deploying over the past year and a half of trading, to just shy of 200 companies, we have been incredibly successful. And thank God, people are using our app and the daily activities every day. We've got engagement much closer to a media product or a game than to an insurer. People care about YuLife. They know, if you ask a company, who's your insurer, who gives you your group life insurance? If you ask an individual in that company, 9 times out of 10, they won't be able to tell you. But if they've got YuLife, they know immediately.
You sort of touched on the makeup of the people who will be using the product, but I guess when you're designing for potentially two different types of person, not necessarily, they're not necessarily too different, especially if they're, maybe like you and they have a company and they're pretty young themselves. But if they're maybe a little bit older, you also have to design interfaces for potentially a slightly older generation of businessmen, and then the products for their usually much younger staff. Have you found any sort of incongruities or maybe any difference in approach for designing for those two different types of psychographic, I guess?
I think functionally, a lot of people who design product with a functional lens definitely find challenges because they're designing things purely functional. We're not designing it functionally, we're designing it emotionally. Our goal is to drive emotion in individuals. So emotion, for emotion to really come through in an experience, the way you interact needs to be kind of like not even noticed. It needs to be so behind the scenes that it's so accessible, it's so effortless. You don't even think about the fact you're having to interact with a piece of technology. The way we've designed YuLife and the app and the experience is with that in mind. We don't look to build functional experiences for different generations of people. We look to build the most simple implementation of an experience that creates the most joy possible, that therefore can be applicable to any generation. I've got women who are 56 years old, 57 years old in Leeds who are playing the game daily, okay? And who are accountants. At the same time, Sodexo is a customer of mine. They primarily look after a very large cleaning workforce. That's a very big enterprise customer. They still use it daily. I've got people like Fladgate, LLP, a law firm. They're using our app daily. So we've got these kind of, what one would have imagined was maybe we'd like really nail the 20 to, or the 20 to 30 year olds. Actually, a lot of adults haven't really had the opportunity to play games. And the way we've made it very accessible means that they're now seeing what these games achieve. They give joy, they make it fun. And the incentives definitely help with getting them to participate in the first place.
Well, I guess I'll have to check, because my mother is a 56-year-old woman from Leeds who is an accountant, so she might be your user.
She could be. I can only hope. She can tell you how she's using the app and what she thinks of it.
Absolutely. And, we'll be able to have a chat over the dinner table about it. Maybe later on. But the selling to businesses themselves, as you do, how does that experience work for you guys? Have you found, we 11FS work with very large banks, and the procurement processes can be painful and slow, and getting the product into people's hands can be very frustrating. You have economic buyers, and then you also have, on the other hand, the actual users, and they're typically two different types of people. What would you typically sort of what's your experience of dealing with those different types of customer?
It's good. It's such a good point, because when I started, I definitely designed for end users, like through and through. It was all about, do I give the end user who's holding the phone in their hand joy? Am I engaging them every day? Is the engagement degree that I need to help them get healthier there? And as we've grown as a business, I've definitely seen how one needs to, manage their communications to enterprises in a slightly different way. And you're right, it is an economic buyer. It's maybe more about convincing the HR director than it is about demonstrating the value to the end user. What I found is, by articulating back to those HR directors the value we create for the end user using analytics and such tools, they understand that they have an engagement issue in most companies around health and well-being. So they get quite excited at the fact that we've got this kind of relationship with end users. It is hard to get that initial hurdle, especially when HR is kind of tired of introducing new initiatives that haven't necessarily delivered the engagement that one might want. For them to believe that we've got this magic solution that does achieve daily engagement with so many staff and creates that kind of culture of being well within any organization YuLife is found in. I think that where that has demonstrated incredibly valuable is on churn. So for example, we don't get churn. We just haven't had any. I think we've had 2 or 3 companies churn for their own private needs due to their own finances. But I think they were cutting a lot of the benefits they offered their staff due to the current circumstances. On the grand mass though, we're still looking at like 0.5% of churn ever of YuLife. And that's because once the value is delivered, it sticks like glue. Whereas when you're initially approaching these organizations saying you've got this amazing solution, sometimes it's a bit of, it's good value for money. So is it too good to be true? There's a bit of that energy going on. Are we using the right lingo and language? Are we have a direct sales team as well as we work with big brokers. So sometimes the direct sales team, by approaching directly about insurance, is a bit weird for these companies when they've only previously worked for a broker. So it's just understanding the different mechanics and ways of buying that these people are used to and facilitating those ways. In the end, I hope to see more and more companies take our product and find that YuLife is more of just a well-known quantity for these organizations, and therefore needing to prove less of the effect of YuLife on an organization. And in time, people will just know the effect it's had because either they've been at an organization where YuLife has been deployed, or they are or they've been to one of our events or shows where we've demonstrated what we can do and what YuLife's life insurance offers.
Sure. You also have this pretty comprehensive offers list, as we've seen in that video just then, which means that essentially, I guess, businesses don't have to think so much about their own sort of maybe perk box style packaging, but they can say, oh, well, this is actually included as a part of the YuLife bundle. So that must also work in some ways in that favor. How do you go about getting those different brands into your product? Is there any sort of relationship involved there? And B, how have you found sort of implementing your own sort of coin system with that, and actually actively engaging with those different products within your product?
So obviously, going out and building that list of partners is essential to our brand because it helps us incentivize the right behavior. We've gone to each of those partners individually and built direct relationships so that we are supporting the best possible offers we can give to our end users for the coin that they spend. We are looking, we spend a lot of time trying to think about what is going to create that desire factor, and finding partners. What we see is Avios, an incredibly popular product. People are, it's some people hate, some people love, but a lot of people are huge fans of Avios. The idea of walking a mile and earning an air mile is for a lot of people quite exciting. Doing 3 minutes of mindfulness and earning an air mile, doing challenges and earning 20 air miles, like people love that energy. So choosing each partner individually required a lot of upfront investment, building those relationships, then building the fulfillment. We've worked with some partners, but on the technology side, but generally we've worked to build direct, meaningful relationships with as many partners as we felt were needed. At the same time, we also went and worked with well-being partners like Fit, Calm, to try and incentivize healthy behavior using their tools. Because let's be honest, I like games, and games are about joy and incentive and motivation and desire. The actual activity you do, there are lots of tools out there that do it so well already. My desire isn't to replace them. Actually, I want to partner with them and use their technology that has been proven and demonstrated to work with consumers, and deploy that both to consumers that use YuLife and businesses that use YuLife, and give those amazing tools to all of their staff. There's no sense in me building my own mindfulness app when Calm is available to everyone in the world, and I could just incentivize people to use Calm.
Yeah. And if you have access to that sort of to that pool of users as well, then that's a really good route in for an organization like Calm.
Exactly, it's a win-win, right? I'm asking people to use their app for longer, which is what they want people to use their app, and what I want is for people to use their app to be healthier, because we know the effect it has is positive, and there's been some studies taken. So there's this fabulous relationship you can build with this well-being ecosystem. They want to engage with people who want people to use their apps.
I was going to say that word ecosystem becomes quite interesting then, doesn't it? It's sort of like it then becomes, and I guess we should go back, like, first of all, start by going back to the root of this, which is like, to define it, the value proposition here is an insurance play, but then you can build this entire universe and world out of the surrounding activities, which is very interesting, and take them on these quite interesting little quests.
As I mentioned, this is our quest screen. So we developed what we call the universe, and the universe is about giving people an adventure to go on. For us, we have in our first season 200 levels. Everything here has been very carefully designed and curated. There's more than 600 unique screens that have been designed in the application for almost every challenge that you see. So you'll see that there is when you take the challenge, which we'll see in a second, you'll see that there is a one-off screen that's been designed just for that. We have 4 worlds, including the forest, the ocean, the mountain, and the desert. And each of these worlds have different meaning and different purpose that's much deeper than maybe meets the first eye. Each animal has its own value that we're trying to embody. The dolphin, for example, is about balance and facilitating balance, and the graphic kind of articulates that. A lot of thought has gone into the underlying design expression we've wanted to take across every element of the app. So that you can see that each day that there's a level, you can do chests, there's challenges, and it just keeps on going. And we found this to be an incredibly successful way of achieving engagement. And you see these are the streaks as well that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And then obviously within organizations, people are quite competitive. So here's a leaderboard. Unfortunately, you can't see my name, but I'm number 35. I am not doing as enormously well as I would have wanted. But you noticed, I mean, you might want to run this a bit slower. Yeah. So this is my emoji. I have another pair of glasses. Unfortunately, due to COVID and no opticians be opening, one of them broke. But these are the glasses that clearly I think the designer was designing when they put together these glasses. We have an avatar creator within the application, and everyone creates their avatars in an office, for example, and you can see them in the leaderboards. And when they're in the top 3 spots, their full avatar shows. This is the screen where you can both see the individual benefits that you can purchase, as well as the employer benefits that you can purchase. So an employer benefit is something like group life, group IP, and group critical illness. And then the individual benefits are things that you can take with you if you were to ever leave your organization. So many people might take out 4 times group life insurance for their staff, but realistically, the individual might need many more times cover than that. So we create a facility for them to top up of their own accord.
Okay.
And then obviously, every time a user equips another financial product, the rate at which they earn Yucoin increases. We explain this with the Yucoin earn rate screen. So you can see that for each financial product I have, there's attributed a different amount of Yucoin I can earn from simple activities like steps, streaks, and chests.
Yep.
And what's happening here is I, as a user, am beginning to understand that the more financially protected I am, the more rewarded I could be from the Yucoin.
Yeah. And there is our own individual sort of rate here, which is applied on top of this based on our sort of profile as well. So you can see a direct comparison of, the real benefits of what your engagement gets,
Exactly. So we showed the calculations of if the base rate is 1 Yucoin at 20 Yucoin, what do the different activities reward?
Yeah.
And as you equip more of these financial products on an individual level or on a company level, your earn rate will increase.
Sure.
I see a world where people live with the YuLife app in their pocket and they're constantly earning rewards for being healthier and living that best life. And these are some of the last screens in the app, specifically the stats screen, so that you can look at your history and understand some of the metrics and rewards you've had, help you benchmark yourself. This was a very popular request because people have been playing the app for quite a long time and wanted to get a bit of analysis. And then ultimately activity history is just detail behind the data that we're getting, right? So, these are the challenges you've done. These are the rewards you've earned. These are the activities.
And in terms of getting those actual activity data in, do you? I imagine you're doing that directly via something like some of the different APIs available.
Yes.
Okay.
So we work with the speedometer within the device.
Yeah.
We also pedometer, not speedometer. Sorry. We work within the pedometer in the device. We also work with Apple Health, Google Fits, Google Play Services, and we are also integrating with Strava, Calm, etc. So we work. We also have integrations with Garmin and Fit, and obviously Apple Health and Samsung work through the native platform. So we've worked with all of the different ways one could collect such data to then reward customers for doing those activities.
Yeah, and you wanted to sort of dedicate a specific area there for showing off the statistics, and you said that there's some demand for a similar sort of thing. How did that come in? Like, how did you? Why did you think that was right for you?
Normally, I'm not a big proponent of saying the customer knows what they want, but sometimes you have to listen. And this was a good example where there was sufficient demand of a request to get historic information on how they've used the app. Just for themselves around their own well-being. It's not a screen that somebody will come back to many times. They might go to it once every couple of months, but it does become that, base utility just to be able to check on, okay, how am I doing benchmarked across the year? So stats like that people quite enjoy.
What was the main big driving force for you this year? Has that changed in any way? And what do you think was going to happen for the rest of the year?
So my heart goes out to a lot of companies that are struggling during this time, more so to a lot of individuals who work for those companies and what they must be going through. It's been really tough. In my previous business, I definitely would have been one of you and been found in myself in a very awkward situation. I feel very fortunate that I chose life insurance as an industry to go into. A bit of a blessing. We're coming into a time when essential services are really going to come to the forward of investment and just personal for individual investment, VC investment, and just generally things we'll want to be working on. We, in scary times, remember our needs and our responsibilities more than our wants and desires. And whilst obviously I'm a big proponent of the importance of feeding desire, I'm also very aware that right now, it's about needs and responsibility. and society has really recognized that, and it's quite amazing. And I think that for a long time, we haven't been awake to what our responsibilities and needs are in the West. And this has definitely given us a bit of a harsh reminder of what we need to be doing as responsible adults in today's world. So I think for us as a business, it's definitely not been a bad experience financially. Yeah. But some individuals haven't been well. That's been very stressful. We've been as supportive as we can be. It's very scary. And obviously, our intention is going to be to reassess this kind of work from home or work remotely state on a more long-term basis, as there's definitely been some cultural changes existing in the workplace now that we need to acknowledge, and the power of allowing people to be distributed in the day-to-day work lives, that's also got huge potential moving forward. And we fully intend to take advantage of that. The workforce as a byproduct of this might in fact be global now. It's almost like, I feel like we've gone through a very weird period of time where we were globalizing, then we were anti-globalizing. Now we're globalizing again through what seems to be isolating, which is so weird when you think about it. But I think the byproduct of this might be that the workforce is more global for all organizations moving forward.
For sure. And one of our senior members of staff, our chief operating officer, talked a little bit about the sort of the new, like, what new offices are going to be, especially for us as an organization. They're going to be more like sort of touch points rather than
I think of it like a library, like when we were doing our A-levels or GCSEs or even uni studies, right? People would go to a library and they'd work in the library, and it became that kind of space to go to work. Yeah. And I think I see offices, those that adapt to this new world will just use their offices as libraries. Yeah. I still think there may be people who want to work from an office, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But I do think there's a massive opportunity in global talent and trying to unlock global talent. And we as a business have always taken advantage of people in the Philippines, We've always asked people in the Philippines, in the Ukraine, in Moldova to join our organization from where they live. And that has proven to be some of the best people I've ever had the fortune of working with. And that's because we just had a global mindset to talent. Yeah. And I think that will have a huge opportunity for everyone moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we head off, anywhere that people might want to find out a little bit more about YuLife, and anything on you as well? Are you on Twitter?
So I'm actually on LinkedIn. Is probably, I very rarely, but I do occasionally post stuff on LinkedIn, and I'm meant to be doing it more now, but I don't. But if you go to our website, www.yulife.com, we're actually, as always, we've launched a new one recently. But you can go and you can check out our blog, which is updated pretty much daily with new stories around being well and what's going on in the world of well-being and insurance. And it is excellent. We have a fabulous writer in-house, and Sophie's been doing an incredible job. So I could only recommend you go to our site, you learn about our products and services, and just buy it.
And on that point as well, you say you go there. Who specifically should go to your website? Who are the best people within an organization? If there is a member of, maybe there's a product manager at HSBC who's watching this show and thinks this would be a really great fit for our product, who do they tell about?
That's brilliant. Yes, they should get in touch with us. They can email me at josh@yulife.com if they really want to. And if they are like, oh, I get it, I'm really excited, and you think that there's an opportunity to do some form of partnership, then I'm always very open to working with others. I think part of the reason we've grown so fast and we've been so successful, touch wood, is because we've worked with some really fabulous institutional partners that have helped us grow by giving us infrastructure to grow at an amazing pace, right? If we design really meaningful experiences and we challenge the status quo on existing financial products to make them more meaningful to individuals, we need partners to help us reach bigger, more markets, more people.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Josh.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's, and thank you also to Josh for making the time to have a chat with us today. I hope you enjoyed that. Josh seems like a really smart bloke with a lot of great experience, and I think that this shows that building a product with the sort of design and sort of real passion sort of indicators that throughout it make for a much better experience, and can actually make that product more about health and wellness rather than something like insurance. He was talking there about going hand in hand those two experiences. And I think they've done a really smart job of combining them together. This show is hosted on the 11FS Pulse platform, great tool which is full of loads of different user experience journeys from different fintechs around the world. Go and check that out over at pulse.11fs.com. Hit us up if you want to contact us directly at 11FS Pulse on Twitter, and also email us pulse@11fs.com. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.